Okay. I would like to call this session of the Board of Revision to order and begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory and the traditional homeland of the Métis Nation. With me on the panel today is Richard Whitbread. The secretary today is Kara Valshaw, and our assessor is Ken Wong. We'll be hearing applications for revision of the assessment roll in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that applicants or the assessor make at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to the matters must be sworn in. Be advised the comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered evidence of market value by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and is independent of it and the City Administration. It makes its decisions on the basis of the evidence provided at this hearing and issues a written order that will be mailed to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of Queen's Bench if the matter pertains to the application of exemptions from taxation. Should you wish to appeal, information on how to do so will be included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the matters to be addressed with each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony, followed by questions that the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony, followed by questions. Each side will have an opportunity to summarize if they wish. Once all the evidence about an application has been brought forward, the applicant may leave. The process will repeat for each item on the docket today. The session will close after all the applications have been heard, and the Board will deliberate in private and make its decisions. You will receive the order by registered mail as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will be part of the public record. Due to the agent representing the properties on our docket today also being scheduled at the same time in another room for a couple of docketed items, we will wait for him to be available and consequently recess for a short period of time. Okay, we need the swearing in now that we have finished our recess, and we will resume this session.
Please state your name.
I will.
Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth and the truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you. Please state your name.
Rocky Newton.
Do you affirm the evidence you present today is the truth and the truth and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Now, I suggest, with your concurrence, that we deal with the recommendations first in order to make sure that we get those at least dealt with on the assumption that they're going to go relatively quickly, and then we will get into the ones where there are not recommendations. It just so happens that 800 recorded is the first one. Mr. Newfold, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, and on all of these, are we dealing only with assessed value?
That's correct.
Okay. In that case, Mr. Wong, could you begin when you are ready?
The subject property is 800 Corridon. The roll number is 120-226-70300. After reviewing the property, I'd like to provide a revised value of $11,470,000 based off of their actual operating income, and then that would be on my page 5.
And do I understand correctly, you have not had the time to discuss this?
No.
And your reaction to that
Well,
recommendation?
we're willing to accept the recommendation, of course, on the basis of the gross number, not the methodology. That's all.
Okay, you find that acceptable.
Yes.
At then the $11,470,000. Without further questions, Mr. Whitbread, any questions?
No questions.
Okay, in that case, we will complete this one and we will carry on to the next one. That one is 566 McMillan Avenue.
Such a property is 566 McMillan. The roll number is 120-218-171-00. As with the previous property, after reviewing the actual performance, it's supporting a value of $1,848,000, which is again on my page 5. So I'd like to I ask that you accept the revised value of $1,848,000.
And Mr. Neufeld?
We will accept this to the total.
That is acceptable as well. Mr. Whitbread, any questions? No. No more questions. That takes care of that one. The third one is 233 Nassau Street North. And there's a recommendation on this one as well.
Yes, the subject property is 223 Nassau. The roll number is 120-218-150-00. And similar to the previous properties, I'd like to provide a revised value of $831,000.
And Mr. Neufeld?
Accept as to total amount.
Okay. Mr. Whitbread? No questions? I have no questions. That takes care of that one then. So then that brings us to 260 Wentworth Street. Mr. Long?
The subject property is 260 Wentworth. The roll number is 120-230-810-00. It's a residential apartment block that's 2 stories high. It was built in 1953, but we have an effective year built of 1978. There are 21 suites with 7 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We used average rents of $973 to get a potential income of $245,000. We used a 2.4% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $239,000. And we used a 42% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $138,000. Capped at 5%, we have an estimated market value of $2,766,000, about $131,000 per unit. On page 4 are our rent comparables, and that the rents we've used are in line with what's on the market. On page 5 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. Their estimated operating income based off of their actual income is about $143,000, which is a little bit higher than what the model is estimated at $138,000.
I'm sorry, where are you seeing those numbers? We're looking at page 5?
On page 5, the estimated operating income is about $143,000, which is based off of the income statements. Which is that operating income is a little bit higher than what the model is estimated at $138,000. On page 3.
Okay.
Yeah. On page 6 is information on how we derived our cap rates. Our cap rates range from 4 to 7.3, with the majority of them falling between 4.9 and 5.3. On page 7 are some cap rate sales. See on the bottom half of the page, there are some cap rates that range from 4 to 6.9%. And on the bottom, the cap rate per 500 footage is 4.07%. So those cap rate sales, they illustrate the accuracy of the model, and they're there to substantiate the model-derived capitalization rates. On page 9 are some pictures of the subject property with its location. Page 10 are some interior photos from their website. The last few pages are the income statements provided by the owner. And there was on the very last page is the permit that was taken out for the interior alterations that were made. So the actual performance of the property supports the model, and I ask that you maintain the assessed value of $2,766,000.
Mr. Newfield, questions?
Yes, was your evaluation on this property all done with the model?
I believe so, yes.
No overrides or anything?
It doesn't look like much.
And so this is based on a effective year of 1978?
Correct.
And how did it get there from 1953?
It was an estimated effective age variant due to the renovation work that was done, as indicated on the last page of my brief.
Okay. So in this work, it says interior alterations, renovate common areas, stairwells, corridors, mechanical room, replace the boilers, renovate suites, windows, floors, electrical, correct?
Correct.
So there was no foundation work here, no structural work, no envelope work listed?
It's not listed, no.
Okay. And this particular, is this the only permit that you have for the site?
Yes.
Okay. 394,000?
Yes.
And you're suggesting that that's substantial enough to change the effective age?
Yes.
Where's your break for your cap rate in the assessment department model on ages? There you've got various age breaks, correct? I know I've heard 1946 is one.
Yeah.
And then after that, what comes next?
1974.
1974. So this one just slipped in over that number then, right?
It is higher than 1974.
Yeah, okay. Now, you've done a workup on page 5, and I take it this isn't part of the workup that went into the valuation, is it?
No.
And on it, you indicate that you looked at the statement and made some adjustments, and I'm wondering if you can describe the adjustment of $25,500, or sorry, $10,582.
Yeah.
What is that actually for?
On page 12.
Right?
Page 12 is the amortization of leasing costs.
Okay. So it's not an amortization of the building, is it?
No.
And do you know what the leasing costs were for?
No.
Okay. Have you reviewed earlier statements that showed portions of this property had rented equipment?
I had not reviewed that, no.
Thank you. Those are my questions.
Mr. Whitfred?
No questions, thank
You stated that these figures were model-driven. Under what circumstances do you use actuals?
For the reassessment, we use the model.
Are there any circumstances where you use actuals for valuation?
in developing the reassessment, no. But if we do review a property and we feel that the model is not the model's estimate is not accurate, then we would look at the actuals.
And but you're stating that your review of rents indicates that there is nothing wrong with the model.
The model appears to be fairly accurate or slightly light on the assessment in this case.
Good. That's all my questions. Mr. Newcomb.
Thank you. We're using actual income, and I believe our major area of disagreement with the assessor on the income side of it in regard to the calculations he made is we did include the amortization of leasing costs. It's had to do with leasing of required equipment for the building, and I'm just trying to find out the precise details of what that was for. It is an expense, not a financial amortization. Relating to the operation.
And what part of the operation?
I'm thinking it might be boiler related, and I'm just looking for the information here on the costs. If I had missed it, I would have had that answer for you ready. Okay, well, my understanding is that the appliances are on a lease program that has a balloon on it for after a certain period of time, and so the amortization number should basically be taken into account over the period of time for which the equipment lease is in place, and it is a legitimate expense from operations. So I was going to give you the precise information because I had it here somewhere. It's been a very lengthy year, lots of details to remember, so I'm plugging it on memory. So what would happen is as it showed up in 1 year, it's going to pertain to several previous years, and because what we've done is an averaging, we've taken that into account. So our NOI then comes to an average of the expenses and the last year of income, which gets us $131,391. And to put some validity to this, we are showing, our major differences, expenses aside, because our ratios are fairly similar, 42.2 to 43.68. Our major difference is that our income is $233,000 and the assessor is $245,000. Sorry, I apologize. 200 and after vacancy, $239,000. So we have our $6,000 difference is right there. That's where we're apart. It's actual income, and as far as cap rate is concerned, this is a renovated property, so there is nowhere to go. It will not improve its value. It's already been, several years ago, gone through the renovation process, and the rents are at a place where they've reached equilibrium. And you'll notice it was 2008 that this was actually done, well past the RTB window of 5 years. So the rents are what they are, and no great opportunity to increase. I know the assessor's at $973. We know the number's slightly less than that, but that's as far as it's going to go, especially for one bedrooms, predominantly one bedroom rooms. Cap rate we're applying is based on factors that we describe here. Nothing has really changed in the age because you can see from the permit that it was only interior work that was done, which is a very, very small component. One might say it's the equivalent of redecoration. Little intense redecoration, but just redecoration. There's been no reported change in the major elements, with the exception of the boiler, which was part of the HVAC, but that's normal replacement anyway. The downside on this is that mostly all one bedrooms and our bachelor units. You would prefer to see a mix of one bedroom and two bedroom units. To afford a rent of $900 a month on a single income is difficult, so these units are more viable in the market if there's a double income tenancy. The unit only has 7 parking stalls reported. It is located in an area covered by zoning. Current zoning is 1.4 parking stalls per unit. So on current zoning, the requirement is going to be 29 parking stalls, not 7. The current parking is legal, and there's no issue, except for the ability to attract higher tenancies for people who have cars. So you're changing your focus as who you're renting to, which holds your value back. Those are some of the issues we look at. The age is brought up because the issue of deferred maintenance. Nothing in the structure of the building has changed, so one is going to anticipate repairs consistent with 1953. Lastly, we do have some very interesting market examples, very similar projects, and on page 34, 35, just a couple to highlight that would be of interest is 1830 Portage, which was had a great deal of work done to it prior to sale, capped at $975,000 and a 6.58% rate. Was just heard by the Board of Revision, and there was a value put on it that was consistent with the sale, or so it said in the brief. Page 35, 26 and 45 Hargrave, 1959 construction, 2011 renovation, capped at 6.62%, and that's an actual purchase decision where vendor and purchaser had a pro forma. The renovation had occurred, the site had been reabsorbed to the market, and the parties agreed that this was the revenue, in-place revenue upon which this cap was decided at 6.62%. There's the downtown one. Those are the two major ones. I think there's some other ones that have been unrenovated, 600 Charles at 7%. And so I think a property like this that's really got nowhere to go, since it's already achieving a rate, would be in the neighborhood of 6.5%. That's my presentation.
Mr. Wong, question?
I guess you're listing off some things like the one-bedroom suite counts as being a negative, and a few other issues with the property. I'm looking at their vacancy for 2017, and it seems to be about 2%. Would that be an indication that it's a
So what page?
Performing well?
Which page is this?
page 3?
Yours or mine?
We're talking about yours.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I see.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's about 2%. So would that not indicate that this property performs fairly well and is desirable?
Well, it's not a vacancy question, because it's a question of potential earnings in that you're limited on your growth. You're at where you're going to be. There's no upside here on a two-bedroom side. The market, the best performers are a healthy mix of 1 and 2 bedrooms in our market. Bachelors are a negative to the mix because the reduced income they generate in comparison to the square footage they occupy makes them not economically viable for the space.
Sorry.
Same question with three bedrooms.
Would the low vacancy indicate that this property performs well?
No, it's just, that's market, and it's on Corridor, and it's going to perform that way at market. And what I'm saying is,
Okay, that's pretty much all.
it's not a vacancy question, it's the ability to earn money.
That's all I was asking.
A rent issue.
That's all my question.
Mr. Whitmer, you bear with me just for one moment, please. If you have questions, go ahead.
Okay.
I want to look for something.
So you were saying that the renovation that was done was internal, relatively cosmetic, didn't have to do with the major components of the building. So the windows, are they still 1953?
I don't recall. My son took guitar lessons at a place in this building, and I can't remember when I drove. I've never been in it. Parked outside it numerous times.
If you look at the
Yeah.
photo, is that potentially 1953 windows or likely something later?
No, it says that on the permit, it says windows.
It says
Oh, it says windows.
Yeah,
Sorry, I missed
okay.
that part.
Yeah, okay.
All right, windows.
I concur.
The roof is a flat roof.
Yes.
Tell me about the significance of it being a flat roof, and has that been dealt with since 1953 or any major refurbishment?
I haven't, there was nothing listed in the permit. And I don't see a major cost. I haven't seen a major cost in the cost of repair and maintenance for a roof. Yeah, 2016 here. Going back another year here. Sorry, I have one more year to look at. No, we have, I've gone back to 2012, there we go. And I do have another year here. 2000, going back to 2012, I've got no roof costs.
Would one expect there to be some major reconstruction of the roof by this time in a 1953 building?
Yeah, I would, typically these will be like a tar and gravel on the existing deck, and the first change would have been to put a membrane under that for insulation. I'm assuming it was done at some point prior to 2012. And then after that, there's going to be the typical upkeep of retarring and checking the seams. And then the membranes specify a life of 20 years, which can be extended with regular maintenance. So, but I don't know when the membrane was put in.
Is there anything to be learned in particular from Mr. Wong's photo, which is a larger photo than yours? From looking at the roof, can anything be inferred about the quality of the roof from a photo like that?
I see several spotting areas, which, and there's no rooftop equipment, so it's speculated that those are where there are areas below lacking proper insulation and condensation is built up on the outside. Fairly common in roofs, and it would be the sort of thing that one would require maintenance to come and take those areas and perform and do seals on it. Sometimes you can do it from below. I'm going to guess that those are shafts in the building that are outside. You'll notice how they go to the center of the rooms, not the sides, so they wouldn't be part of they'd be part of an interior wall. So so a vertical penetration of some sort that wasn't adequately sealed from below. I guess.
It appears to be a common photograph between your submission and Mr. Wong's. Do you know the date of that?
My page 2, I don't know the top date. This is the City of Winnipeg's aerial photography site, but yes, and I believe his is as well. Zoom in. No.
Okay. By the way, I always find it helpful to know what the date is
Yeah.
of the photos. Lastly, this is a brick building. No, second last, brick building. Is there substantial work required for a building that is brick like this at some point, and has that been done?
I assume that it's a brick veneer over wood frame. I haven't inspected the building itself, but that would be the common construction at that time. They stopped using solid brick like, maybe in the 30s and 40s you would see brick or double brick walls. And after the Second World War, most construction ended up being wood frame with the, and in the beginning they used the 4-inch brick as an envelope, and then replaced that later with veneers. So I think that's what we're dealing with here, 2x4 wood frame and brick. So it'll have, it's non-load bearing, so it'll just be a penetration issue.
Okay. Does that mean it gets repointed at some?
Yeah, it'll have to be washed and repointed for moisture and condensation and anywhere along it. It'll usually be a bad seal around a window joint, and that could cause that. And the difference between a non-structural brick and a structural brick is when you begin to see a sag, it'll all the way down, and that's when you know that there's load bearing on it, generally. With this, I don't think this is load bearing. My picture, I know it's wavy, it's just a wavy picture.
You don't have a record of this work having been done?
No.
Presumably?
No.
Okay. Lastly, any issues with the foundation at all? This has a basement, so it's got a foundation. Any
None
foundation
reported.
issues?
I don't have any in my notes. No, I have none in my notes.
All right. Mr. Whitbread?
I'm good. Thank you.
Fine? Then we're fine. Thank you very much. We will move on.
Actually, I'd just like to provide some rebuttal for the cap rates.
Oh, feel free.
Yeah, I thought it was going to be quick. Okay.
Well, 333 Ward's not in there. And you did spend a decent amount of time talking today.
I was waiting.
Well-
It's like there's a vacuum, right? You know, nature of where's a vacuum.
I did ask a few questions.
So you told me to shut
Yeah.
up.
Actually, I'm sorry. I actually meant to keep one copy. Thank you. So on the first page is two of the properties that are in the applicant's cap rate study, 228 Notre Dame and 1830 Portage. The cap rate that was indicated for 228 Portage from the applicant is 5.53%, but when we look at the income and expenses for the property against the sale price, we calculated 4.16, and for 1830 Portage, the applicant has indicated 6.58, but when we looked at the income and expenses, it indicated 4.8%, and on page 3. On page 3 is the calculation for the cap rate for 228 Notre Dame. And on page 5 is the calculation for the cap rate for 1830 Portage. And the remainder are the income and expense information for those properties.
You need a minute, Mr. Newcomb?
Nope, fine.
He's seen this before.
Not all of it. I just noticed something new. Well, I'll only ask new questions. No, all of them.
The cap rates that we've calculated do seem to be in line with what the assessment and taxation department's cap rates are.
Mr. DeValle.
Yes. In recreating these capitalization rates, have you relied solely on the income and expense mailers?
Yes.
Okay. Were the income and expense mailers utilized in the transaction for sale, to your knowledge?
I don't know.
On page 7, the latest statement for 228 Notre Dame indicates a vacancy rate of 8.94%. The previous ones are 7.976. Do you know what the vacancy was at time of sale?
No.
On page 7, there's an expense for property tax appeal, $15,000. Is that a typical expense?
On what?
Line 215 on page 7.
No. And it was excluded from the expenses on page 3.
You took out the property tax appeal.
Well, you can see on the second on the expenses, it says in the brackets it says less property tax appeal, less tax appeal.
Okay, but you didn't stabilize the vacancy. On page 1830 Cordage, the last statement date.
Sorry, what page?
I'm looking at page 10. I believe that's the last statement date you submitted for 1830 Cordage. Did you not find that the $37,000 in repair and maintenance was a bit on the high side for a building that was 13 units?
Yes, and that's exactly why I didn't include it for the estimating their expenses
On page.
on page 5.
Where does it show you taking it out?
Well, if you look at the expenses on the bottom chart, it says expenses are for 2014 and 2013.
Okay. And so you now on 2014, then same question, 24,000 in expenses. Isn't that rather high for an 11 unit?
A tiny bit high.
And you think that if somebody was preparing his property for sale, that they would spend more money to fix it up or not spend any money at all?
I'm not really too sure.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Whitford? I have no questions. Thank you very much.
Very, very briefly, just a comment here. We've heard it all before. These two properties are purchased by the same company. It's Smith Agencies. They're my client. I've examined the documents upon which the sale was based. They were not the assessment department's income and expense returns. With all due respect, they were based on other issues. There was a great deal of maintenance spent on these sites before sale, and so they don't indicate the actual performance at the time of sale. And they're also do not date from time of sale. Thank you.
What was that time of sale?
The time of sale.
You have that?
Yeah, it's on page 3 and 5 at the very top.
Okay.
His 3 and 5?
No,
Oh, your rebuttal.
This 3 and 5, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, at the very top.
Yeah.
Oh, I see, okay.
So late 2017 was the Notre Dame sale, and the latest date of the note given to us was for a period ending December 2015. So we do have a 2-year variance between statements and sale. In respect to 1830 Portage, the sale was, approximately March of 2016. The latest statement provided was December 31st, 2015. However, we did hear the assessor say he wasn't relying on that, on the expenses from there, which makes his information a year and a half old.
Thank you. All right, that concludes this one. Who's it, Wentworth? And we'll go on to 1945 Portage Avenue.
Okay, the subject property is 1945 Portage. The roll number is 070-404-64100. It's a residential apartment block that's 3 stories high. It was built in 1953, but we have an effective year built of 1974. There are 17 suites with 6 outdoor parking stalls. On page 2 is a sales history for the subject property. There's a 2018 sale, which it was past the April 1st reference date, so I ask that you ignore that. And the other sale is in 2008 for $833,000. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $839 to get a potential income of $171,000. We use a 2.6% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $166,000. And we use the 45% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $91,000. Kept at 5.1%, we have an estimated market value of $1,798,000 to go to $105,000 per unit. On page 4 are our rent comparables, showing that the rents we used are in line with what's on the market. On page 5 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. Their estimated NOI based off of their actuals is about $96,000, which is a little bit higher than what the model is estimated at $91,000. On page 6 is information on how we derived our cap rates, and on page 7 are some cap rate sales to substantiate the model. On page 9 is some pictures of the subject property with its location. On page 10 is some information on the property with some interior pictures from sunrex.ca. The remainder of my brief are the income statements submitted by the owner. So when you look at the actual performance of the property, it supports the model, and I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $1,798,000.
Mr. Newell.
Yes, page 3 then is all model.
Appears so, yes.
And page 2, although you retracted it, is it not the case that this was a portfolio sale?
I don't know.
The varied age change from 53 to 74 was based on what information?
Renovation work that was done.
When was that done? Do you have it at all?
I'm not sure.
And what was so you know the scope of the renovation?
I do not know the scope of the renovation.
So you stated earlier that the break-even year, or the change in valuation rates occurs in 1974. So this one is right on the edge?
Yes.
Those are my questions.
Mr. Whitford, did you inspect the property?
I did not inspect the property.
So you can't comment on whether the suites all represent what we see here in your photos?
I cannot.
Photos on the leasing.
I cannot confirm that. I can just confirm that that's what the property manager is advertising.
Yeah, okay, thank you. No other questions.
Mr. Newell.
Yes. Okay, so this property, I've dealt with this property both prior, during, and after renovation. The former owner was a client. The scope of the renovations was interior suite renovation and a new facade. So there was nothing changed on the structure itself. The outside of it was painted black, and there was a chrome entranceway, a chrome covering of the arched entranceway. That was the basis. And every suite was renovated, and that involved replacing flooring with the composite tiling, composite wood product, and new cabinets, new fixtures, and new doors, and new light fixtures. The statements are what give us concern in that they show a decline in income, and it's based on actual income. Now, prior to renovation, the income on this site was about $70,000. So the renovation did provide a fairly significant increase in net income. But this is some older information, and it has been submitted to the board. Our first full year after renovation, the income was $166,000, and then on my page one, the next year, $174,000, and then it dropped to $162,000 in 2017, $164,000. So what we have here is declining income over the 4 years following the renovations, which is showing as a very weak income on the site. Now, I know, I can, from experience, not from experience, from observation, that this was a problem to do with the asking rates, that it came out at a time when there was fewer product on the market, and it was earning more income. But as the years went on and more projects hit the market, substantial rental discounts had to be applied to maintain tenancies. And in the last year, those discounts were $12,000, and the vacancy was $18,000. That's our information. And in the first year of operation, those numbers were significantly lower. There was no discount. And sorry, that's the first renovation year. There was no discount, and the vacancy was lower. And I do have the exact numbers here. Yes, the first year after renovation, the vacancy was $797, period, and there was no discount. So what we've had is a slippage of income on a post-renovation project, and that's, again, going to the concept that once you renovate it, there's nowhere to go but down. The expenses have remained fairly stable, and the latest maintenance and repair is about $1,300 a unit, which is mid-low on a property of this age. So that'll eventually creep up as well. The sale was part of a portfolio. Mr. Burridge owned 3 units. I wish I could remember the addresses off the top of my head. These are very easy to remember because this company was called Firecracker, and they were sold to another client of mine in a portfolio sale. The resulting sale is very difficult to lean on because of the declining incomes and the portfolio nature of it. So what we have used the last year of statements and average the expenses, and we have an NOI which is higher than what the assessor has, but our cap rate is higher, and the reasoning is that we're showing declining income. We have a renovation that hasn't quite caught up with a rising maintenance and repairs, so there'd be a downside. The unit configuration is a 6 bachelor and 11 one-bedroom, which is a weaker configuration with the bachelor. Only 9 parking stalls for 17 units, which means you're not going to attract, if you build the best suite in the world, you're not going to get better income if you still can't give someone a place to park his car.
Sorry, how many parking stalls?
9 out of 17. Again, we're going back and looking at the other post-renovation sales we had reviewed, and a rate for a post-renovation sale at this point in its life would be 6.5%, and that's our number 1491. Thank you.
Mr. Wong, questions?
No questions.
Mr. Whitbread?
No questions.
So was the renovation in 2013?
It was 2012.
2012.
Yeah, it ended in 12, and then 13 was an absorption year.
And what was the revenue in 2014? I think you said it, but I didn't have
14 was 166,000 revenue, 49,000 in expenses for an NOI of 116,000.
So 2014 revenue was 166, then it went up to 174,
Yes.
then down 162,
And then up.
So was 2015 just an anomalous year? Meaning this has actually been relatively stable revenue?
2015, I'm just looking at it here, had one suite vacant for 1 month. And after that, the vacancy began to rise. So that was a full year after renovation. So in the following year, the vacancy was $15,000.
In percentage terms, how did the vacancy vary from year to year?
Well, the first year would have been 0.5%, and 15,000 represents about 8.5%. The next year, down to 8.5%. And the following year, sorry, I skipped a year here, was 18,000 on, so it would have been 9.5%. And the reference year was the same amount, about 9.5%.
Okay.
I'm familiar with the property, and I think they shot their potential market as hoping to attract a higher income, more, I hate those words, like upscale, and the market didn't bear it.
Okay, thank you very much. 2199 Portage Avenue.
The subject property is 2199 Portage, roll number 070-500-37000. It's a residential apartment block that's 3 stories high. It's built in 1954 and has 24 suites with 15 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We used average rents of $754 to get a potential income of $217,000. And we used a 2.6% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $211,000. The 49% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $107,000. Capped at 5.3% for an estimated market value of $2,024,000, which is about $84,000 per unit. On page 4 are our rent comparables, showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's on the market. On page 5 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. Based off of their 2017 and 16 income, their estimated operating income is about $109,000. It's in line with what the model is estimated at $107,000. On page 6 and 7 is information on how we derived our cap rates and some cap rate sales. Page 9 is a picture of the subject property with its location. The last few pages are the income mailers that were submitted by the owner. So again, their estimated operating income looking at their actuals is about $109,000, which is in line with what the model is estimated at $107,000. So the actual support the model, and I actually maintain the assessed value at $2,024,000.
Mr. Nichol, question?
Yes. Is your valuation done by the model then?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. And on page 5, your summary, repair and maintenance per unit, $1,400 to $1,500. Is that what you would typically expect?
I typically observe about maybe 500 to a couple thousand.
Yeah, so it's a wide range, but
yeah.
Okay. I'm just curious, why did the income increase by $30,000? Do you have any idea?
I don't know.
Increase in what year?
From 2016 to 2017. The rental income.
Maybe you can help us out with that.
No, actually, you did me a favor here because we didn't get the 16 mailer. Now I've got it. So I thought maybe you knew. Was there do you have the page from showing the potential income from the previous year? For example, page 11, that's the potential income, $224,000. One can then calculate the vacancy on the difference to $211,000. Do you have the same front page from our page 12 to show the potential?
No.
Okay. Thank you. Those are my questions.
Mr. Whitford?
Did you inspect the place?
No.
No. You have no information about any expenditures on this building. Its effective date is 1954. Appears to have no improvements.
I guess maybe not that we know of.
Yeah. I can't see anything.
Yeah.
Other than a $35,000 to $37,000 a year repair and maintenance.
Yeah, and it's difficult because that stuff might have been done 5 years. If it was done 4 years ago, then we're not looking at it. Or if it was done 10 years ago.
Yeah. But that would have affected your effective date, do you think?
If there was permit that was taken out for work for the property, we would have likely inspected it.
Exactly. And your breakpoint, if I remember your earlier evidence on cap rates, was 1946 and 1974, just going back those years, correct?
Yes.
And so if I look at a building 260 Wentworth at 1953, you used 5.0, and on this building, you've used 5.3 as a cap. Can you just comment about why the model would give us a different rate, do you think?
Between Wentworth and
Yeah, you had a 5.0 cap.
the year, this is 1954, I believe Wentworth was 1978.
Well, yeah, effective date.
Yeah, so I think that might
would
be
be
it. Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so
Yeah.
we come
No,
outside
typically-
the break here. I understand.
Yeah, no, we, like, if we have properties that are very similar, I would, we try to treat them, we treat them, if they were exactly the same, they would have the same cap rate.
I understand.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
That's good to hear. Okay, thank you. No other questions?
You don't have any interior photos, obviously, but I would conclude correctly, would I, from the fact that there is no change in the effective year, that there has been no significant either cosmetic or structural improvement made to this building at all?
I guess maybe if they had taken out permits for some major work, we would have likely inspected it and probably applied an effective age to it, but it doesn't appear to be the case. So it's possible. Sometimes it's possible that property owners do work, but they don't take out permits, and we don't. And sometimes we don't catch up with properties like that. And so it's possible for buildings to be improved, but without us knowing it and without there being a change in the effective year building.
Mm-hmm. I'm just puzzled by the fact that there's no change in the effective year, and this many years later, only $1,500 is being spent in repair and maintenance per month. Doesn't that seem odd?
The thing is, with regards to repair and maintenance, and a lot of the property owners treat their properties somewhat differently, and so there is no sort of one way to do it, and so the way that this property owner is doing it, it actually seems fairly normal for me.
And you wouldn't see this as symptomatic of deferred maintenance, deferred substantial repairs, need for capital expenditures?
That would require, I guess, a lot more information and a lot more years of information, and a inspection of the major components of the property. And unfortunately we don't typically do that for assessment purposes, because I guess it would be difficult to do that for all the properties.
Okay. Mr. Kufelt, your evidence, please.
Just one question, though, and follow-up, sort of follow-up, just maybe helps me out here. You have on page 5, is that the calendar year or the year it was submitted?
Page 5?
Yeah, you have 2017, 2016.
It would have been a calendar year.
No, but the year was when it was submitted, or okay, because I did find the statement you have for labeled 2016, and it's a 2015 statement.
So the question is, are we looking at roll year or the IME
Right.
year?
I'm going to suggest that we're both missing 2016. Don't know why.
The top of your table on page 5, then, Mr. Long, is that represent those dates the roll year or the IME year?
It's different. The information on this is a little bit ambiguous, because if you look on page 12 and 13, if you look on the top of page 12, it says December 2016, and then if you look on page 13, it says December 2015.
Oh, I see what it is.
But the thing is, if you look at the
same numbers.
If you look at the numbers,
Yeah.
the income, it's exactly the same. So it's a little bit unclear, but
So they likely just copied the previous year and put it
or
through.
they when they were filling this out, maybe they looked at the wrong statement, and they
Maybe they knew it was a non-penalty year and they just photocopied the old one and put it in
Well.
because they knew you wouldn't care. No,
and that's
I'm not that clever.
So that's kind of.
So there could, yeah, okay, so there could have been a missing 2016. I'm looking for the continuity of the income that I don't see, so I'm gonna speculate that 15 was copied to 16 and 16 is not in our possession.
Wouldn't you be able to get that from the owners for your information, or?
I get this from the property manager, so, okay. No, you did show both years are the same, right? 15 and 16. Okay, it just helps me understand, thank you. No, nothing turns on it really, thank you. So we used just the 2017 income. We had thought we were missing a year, and I think we are. But the performance is higher at 211,000. The previous year, skipped or not, was 182. Before that, it was 191. Before that, it was 188. So there were some ups and downs in it, and performance in 17 was better than in previous years. To my knowledge, there's been no major work done in this site that would have changed that. The company does often do work for above guideline increases, but those aren't major renovations, and they do not require a permit, which is different from the owner not taking one out. They don't take it out because they're not required to for interior renovation work, but they do get allowed increases above guideline. I suspect that there's some transcribing issues here with the statements. Aside from that, we're not really that far off on our net income. This is an issue relating to the capitalization rate. And as before, we are not of the opinion that the market is that competitive, that this would be more represented by properties that I have listed on page 34. 600 Charles is an unrenovated property purchased by one of my clients for which we appraised the site. 182 Church, which we did appraise the site. There was some minor renovations done on it, which consisted of an ugly paint job. And as well as looking at the other ones that I had mentioned, 1830 Portage and 2645 Hargrave. That's my presentation.
Questions, Mr. Wall?
No questions.
Ms. Fred?
I'm fine, thank you.
As am I. Case carried. Last one.
Brief summation. Even our requested value indicates a substantial increase over last year, and I believe it's due to performance improvement. And when we've heard other properties that have performance decreases, without an improvement, what does that say? Evil doesn't exist. Or good doesn't exist unless there's evil involved. If you believe in increases, you have to believe in decreases. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, it's number 150, Portage Avenue.
The subject property is 2150 Portage. The roll number is 070-500-240-00. It's a residential apartment block that's 5 stories high. It's built in 1958 and has 70 units with 48 outdoor parking stalls. On page 3 is our income valuation summary. We use average rents of $858 to get a potential income of $720,000. We use a 2.6% vacancy to get an effective gross income of $702,000, and we use the 49% expense ratio to get a net operating income of $356,000. Kept at 5.3%, we have an estimated market value of $6,717,000, about $95,000 per unit. Page 4 are some rent comparables showing that the rents we've used are in line with what's on the market. On page 5 is a summary of the income and expenses submitted by the owner. their estimated operating income based off of their actuals is about $350,000, which is in line with what the model is estimated at $356,000. On page 6 and 7 is information on how we arrived at our cap rates and some cap rate sales. On page 9, there are some pictures of the subject property with its location. The remainder of their brief are the income mailers submitted by the owner. So when you look at the actual performance of the property, it supports the model. So I ask that you maintain the assessed value at $6,717,000.
Yes, so this was all done by the model?
I believe so, yes.
And the model would indicate for 1958 the cap rate of 5.3%.
Yes.
And the calculations, page 5, are your review of the statements, then, correct?
Yes.
Those are my questions.
Mr. Whitbread.
No question.
This property has a relatively high proportion of bachelor suites,
Yes.
like 6 out of the total of 70.
Yeah.
How does the market view that? Good, bad, and different?
I feel that it's there. I don't know if it's as negative as the applicant has indicated, just because I know there is a building that was renovated. There were all bachelors, and it sold for a fair amount of money. So, I mean, if you were going under the assumption that, bachelors aren't, they're less desirable, then in theory, that building comprised of all bachelors wouldn't sell for anything, or it would sell for a very low amount. But in this particular case, it actually sold for a very, very high amount.
And where was that?
It's on Cambridge. It's off of Taylor. Yeah, by the Pan Am. Yeah. So, based off of my observation, it just sort of seems like the market is almost picking up whatever becomes available.
You've got a vacancy rate of 2.6%. How did that vary year over year, or do you know?
I don't know how it was in the previous, let's say, cycles. It seems to be relatively stable, maybe creeping up a bit from previous.
That's all my questions. Mr. Nicola.
Thank you. I did notice that there is a math error on page 1. I don't know where those expenses came from because none of them are right. I did a quick recalculation though, and fortunately the resulting number isn't a major difference. Our average expenses over the period was not $264,000, it's $270,038, which would indicate an NOI of $324,805 rather than $330,280. Now, I note that the assessor has chosen to disregard one particular year of expenses, and knowing that this particular operator does not engage in major repairs, I'm content that the repair and maintenance that year was appropriate. Of course, I guess the major issue here is, on the side of it is the assessment department has applied gross potential rent after vacancy of $702,000, and the actual performance, the highest it's ever hit, is $594,000. So we're quite a distance away now. Our expense ratio on the building is lower than what the assessor has, so That's why I said in my earlier statement about the repair and maintenance expenses, our ratio is still much lower than theirs. So the big problem here is they've overstated income. And so our NOI, we're going to use is 324,805, and I'm not providing new information because the information is actually in the assessor's brief on pages 11, 12, so 10, 12, 13. In regard to capitalization, I did not prepare this brief. I disagree with this rate. I think it should be higher. The properties is poorly configured, and it's basically a building of bachelor and one-bedroom units on the river, and you could do much better. Now, it's situated across the street from nearby Deer Lodge Hospital, and Deer Lodge has gone through several incarnations. It is currently in use mostly as a personal care home and also as extended care for veterans. In the early days, when the hospitals were more self-contained, a one-bedroom or a bachelor's was a good idea because you had a great deal of interns working in the site, and doctors in residence, nurses in training, and for example, the medical center apartments on Notre Dame still exist for that on that basis. Misericordia has the nurses' residence nearby. So at the time, it seemed like a good idea. Today, it's a waste. I think you would probably do better off in the market to look at some conversion to bigger units and try to take advantage of the location on the river. You could get a better dollar for the site. And it's obvious that when you look at the gross revenue generation, that it's not really coming in where it should on that basis, but it is what it is. The base rent on the bachelor's is $578, which is quite low in the market, and you could do better, but you can't change what it is. I would actually, in my mind, thinking of a cap rate in closer to 7%, just based on its very low below performance where it should be at. Given that we've already presented this evidence, and oh, okay, I see. I retract what I said about the expenses. They did put them in right. They adjusted them all. They adjusted the previous year's higher for R&M and 2016 lower for R&M, so the number comes out to 264. So we're sticking with 332.80. I'm sorry, I don't read what they present, and I stopped making these up myself. So 332.80. My thought would be a number closer to 7%, but we've given them 625. So the value $5,284,000 is what we're requesting.
Thank you. Mr. Walsh?
No questions.
Mr. Whitbread?
No questions.
Did I understand you said that the owner is not big on doing major repairs, so like nothing really has been done with this?
I don't think the owner has ever taken out a RTB exemption on their properties, and they own 90 properties in Winnipeg. This is not what they do. They keep their properties in good repair, and when a cost comes up, an expense comes up, they seek to use it to get an above guideline increase. For example, if you replace all the rugs in the hall, you might get 3% instead of 2% over on your annual, and all of these numbers are reflected accurately in their statements.
Okay. Thank you very much. Summaries? No summaries.
Yeah, sorry about that earlier mistake. I don't read my own stuff here.
Well, I'd just like to maybe point out that 15, 16, and 17, they've gone up by more than RTB might allow. So I'm not sure.
Yeah, it's called an above guideline increase. So if you do a work, they range depending on what you do. And
No,
if you're a
so
paralegal-
you were saying that they don't put in work, but
No.
the income is saying that maybe they are putting in work,
No.
which allows them to.
No, I said the exemption.
Yeah.
If you put a certain amount of money in and you do 3 of the 5 major components, you're exempt from RTB for 5 years. You get to reset your rates wherever you want, and you don't have to change your rates or follow the guideline increases for 5 years. The alternate program is, let's just say I want to do all the interior rugs in a place. You can actually apply for an amount above, if it's 1.5, you can get maybe 3% on the basis of this cost. A lot of people, after the last big reassessment, got hit with big increases in taxes. They were allowed to go and apply for above guideline increases if they knew how the system worked. They're not getting big money, right? But that's why when you look at it, it's going to be more than the 1.5%.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. That then concludes this hearing. We will respond to our orders as quickly as possible.